Let's travel back in time to 2015, and I was working on my very second property. I want to talk to you about the lessons that I learned when I got started investing in real estate. Today, I own $51 million worth of real estate I bought using other people's money, and I've done over 1,600 deals. That's a really cool number, but how does that help you? Not a ton. But how I can help you is going back in time and going over my very first 5 deals, talking about the numbers and the stories behind them, and then giving you my biggest lessons learned. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. You are on video 2 of a 5-part series, and I'm going to talk about my very second property that I bought. If you missed video 1, where I talk about my very first rental property, don't go anywhere. I will send you to that at the end of this video. There are so many lessons that you learn when it comes to real estate, but if you can focus on the bigger lessons at the beginning so you can get through your first 5, 10, or 15 deals, there are so many lessons to be learned in real estate, but this is my story and these are my lessons. If you're excited to learn about this, hit the like button. All right, we're traveling back to 2015. I had a full-time W-2 job and I was working on my second property. In fact, I was finishing up my very first property as I got this project under contract. If you watched the first video, you'll know that I didn't have enough money to pay back my private lender their entire interest. I paid them back principal plus some interest, but they allowed me to roll that additional interest owed into this deal, assuming the numbers made sense, which they did. I got this property under contract and this lead from, believe it or not, a local wholesaler who I found on a local real estate investing Facebook group. Now, this was back in 2015, so the real estate investing industry with all the gurus wasn't quite what it is today. However, there were Facebook groups back then, there were deals in them then, and there are deals in them now. I have one student, Kurt, who's bought 68 rental properties, and every single one has come from a lead or a resource that he has found on his local real estate investing Facebook groups. So deals can be found there. I met the wholesaler who sold me this deal, Shalisa, on this group. She posted that she had a property in a certain zip code for sale. I sent her a DM. The next day we went out and looked at it and ended up getting it under contract. This just goes to show you the power of letting other people do the work for you. I didn't know how to find deals. I didn't know how to negotiate with sellers. I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. So I did the only smart thing I could do was leaning on somebody else to find the deal, negotiate with the seller, and get it under contract. And that's exactly what I did. The property was a small 3-bed, 1-bath in a decent area. We're going to say C plus B minus for the area. And the cool thing about this deal is she ended up bringing me 3 other deals. So I bought 4 deals from this one wholesaler, and all of those deals I ended up keeping as rentals, and I have over $500,000 of equity today in those 4 deals. I don't know what happened to Shalisa. She stopped sending me deals. Maybe she went out of business or moved. Doesn't really matter. I cultivated this relationship and it ended up being a $500,000 relationship. I don't want that to sound insensitive, like I don't care what happened to Shalisa. I just lost touch with her. One of the micro lessons I learned in this deal, before I show you the numbers here in a second, then get to the macro lesson, was letting other people do things for you. You can't do everything yourselves. You don't have the time, energy, or skills to do that. So lean on other people's time, energy, and skills. I leaned on Shalisa's and got some properties because of it. All right, let's talk specifically about this deal. So I got the property under contract for $44,000. Now, I know that sounds like a low number. This wasn't the highest class area, although again, it wasn't a war zone. This property is over doubled in value since I bought it. So this was numbers back then. Numbers today are a lot different. The property did not need a lot of work, which was another huge benefit. I don't know what Shalisa got the property under contract for. I'm sure she made $10,000 or $15,000, which is fine with me. However, I knew that the property could be bought for $44,000. I knew it needed about $5,000 to $6,000 worth of work, assuming that I was going to do some of the work myself. It was in pretty darn good condition. It just needed the floors refinished, some paint, a couple appliances, and the outside of the house painted. Other than that, it was in good enough shape to get rented. So I borrowed $50,000 from the same private lender that did my very first deal. I was going to have to pay them back their interest on this deal, plus the additional interest on the last deal to make everything whole, and that's exactly what ended up happening. After a month or two of work, going there on weekends with my business partner Lucas, we had the property ready to get rented. This was spring of 2015, and in St. Louis in February, March, you can get days that are 0 degrees and you can get days that are 45 or 50 degrees. We had one weekend of 2 days in the 40s, and Lucas and I painted the entire outside of this house. We took a $6,000 bid from a contractor, crumbled it up, threw it in the trash, got about $500 worth of paint, some brushes and some rollers, and spent about 25 hours one weekend painting the entire outside of the house. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. So by the end of this project, we got the property appraised at the small local bank that we had already built the relationship with on the first deal, which is another quick lesson there. You're not going to get all the relationships on every single deal. But if each deal, especially at the beginning, you can add a couple key relationships, you're able to move much faster on the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I spent about a month trying to find a lender to do the refinance on my first property. I spent exactly 10 minutes sending an email to that lender that I knew would do the deal on the second property. So things do get smoother and more efficient as you move along. The bank sent out a third-party appraiser, and the property appraised for $88,000. We got an 80% loan on that, which is about 70 grand. We used that 70 grand and we paid back our private lender their initial $50,000 they gave us, plus $3,000 in interest. Again, this was a quicker project, plus $4,000 in interest we owed them on the last property, plus an additional $1,000 penalty for being late on the payment to them. So we ended up giving the private lender a $58,000 check, and we had $12,000 of extra cash. Now, honestly, I don't remember if we ended up leaving it in the deal or pulling it out and putting it in our savings account or in the business's savings account. Regardless, the point was the first project turned out okay, but wasn't very efficient. The second one turned out pretty darn good, and we were able to make everybody whole on the first project. This is a huge lesson learned when it comes to real estate. Not every project has to be perfect, but if you do enough projects, you're able to pull and bob and weave from prior projects, whether it's money, relationships, or connections, and end up making it work. Where you fail is when you stop doing projects and doing deals because one or two went south. If you stick with this in the long run, you will get better. There will be speed bumps, but if you stick with this long enough, by the time you get to your 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th property, you will be so much more efficient. You'll be able to cover up some of your flaws and wounds from the first few projects and start to grow and really gain momentum. If you do a couple projects, get all pissy and moany, and take 6 months, a couple years off and try to get back in the game, things change. If you consistently put in the right amount of effort with real estate, and probably only real estate, you will always end up winning. There is always something you can do. You can wholesale, you can fix and flip, you can do owner finance, or you can turn a long-term rental into a mid-term rental. You can take a duplex and turn it into a single family. You can build from the ground up. You can do innovation. There are just so many avenues that come along with real estate investing. If interest rates are low, refinance. If they're high, you could decide to flip. No matter what the market's doing, you have options with real estate, and that is the biggest lesson that I learned. After the second project got done and we wiped the slate clean and had 2 rental properties legitimately purchased using none of our own money, while the cash flow wasn't super sexy, that completely lit a fire underneath us, and we thought, we can do this. We understood that we didn't know what we were doing, yet we owned over $200,000 worth of real estate, all using other people's money. Yeah, that got us pumped up and that got us ready to step on the gas, which is exactly what we did until the third project, which I'm going to tell you about in the next video. So depending on when you're watching this third video may or may not be out. Regardless, hit that like button and subscribe. The third video, I'm going to talk to you about a firehouse that we bit off way more than we could chew and did a complete gut rehab on a project on our very first flip. It gets really interesting and dicey. So make sure to hang around or poke around my channel for that video. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and check out this video over here that goes through my very first project if you missed that one and lessons learned. See you on the next one.